Hey everybody, this is Keith here of Euphoria Pictures. Welcome back to my channel. Right, so I'm going to do something a little bit different here. Over the last few weeks I've been watching a lot of Blu-rays. A lot of bad looking Blu-rays I might add, and it's kind of inspired this video of putting together a list of movies that I would love to see getting 4K transfers. So I hope you can bear with me with this video. It's something a little bit different. I want to just give the unboxings a little bit of a break this week, and I thought it'd be a fun video to do. So what I'm going to do here, it's going to be a mixture of movies that I would love to see get 4K transfers, movies that me personally love. And then the other half of them are going to be movies that on Blu-ray that desperately need 4K transfers. The Blu-rays just look absolutely terrible. So that's what I'm going to be doing with this video. So I'm going to get cracking with this. And the first movie I'm going to start with, and it's the movie that actually inspired this video, believe it or not. It's a strange one. So it's Point Break. Now, I don't know what it was with this movie. Maybe it's because I knocked it on after I watched the 4K. I think it was a great 4K movie. It might have been Godzilla vs. Kong, and maybe that didn't help it. But when I did knock it on, I noticed that the picture the grain structure looked very, very inconsistent, and I hate that when I see that on movies. I found the colour palette to be very drab, very dull. Just the picture lacked any kind of life. And not just that, but the DTS 5.1 on this one, it just had no energy to it. And I just felt that this movie deserves so much better. I had a great time revisiting the movie, but my god, it deserves so much better than what we got here. The picture quality is massively lacking, and it's a great Catherine Bigelow movie about these surfing bank robbers. Now, I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous. I think they even make a joke about it in the movie, surfing bank robbers and how ludicrous it all sounds. But it just works, and it works so well, and it's beautifully directed by Catherine Bigelow. And yeah, I would love to see them do something with this in the future, and I'm sure the movie is very popular. It has to be very, very popular. It spawned a remake as well. Not a great remake, I might add. But there must be some sort of popularity to it. And hopefully someday we will get a 4K transfer on this one. So yes, that's my first pick, and that is Point Break. Right, so up next is a movie that I'm sure everybody wants to see on 4K. And it is George Romero's Day of the Dead. Now, I only just watched this Blu-ray very recently, and I have to tell you, it's in good shape. Now, this edition is from a company called Midnight Classics, and I think they are the Italian equivalency of Scream Factory. So I'm presuming that the transfer in this is the Scream Factory one, and it is looking great. The movie definitely needs a cleaning. There is a lot of scratches to be seen, a lot of film dirt there. But other than that, it's in relatively great condition, and I'm sure if they'd done a bit of work to it, they could get this movie looking absolutely pristine. There is a handful of scenes in it where it does need a lot of work. One scene in particular in the caves near the end of the movie, that entire segment looks in very, very rough condition, very inconsistent grain structure, and it seems it's very noisy at times as well, which can be very, very distracting. But I think if they can go back to that scene in particular, clean it up, I think we could get an absolute stellar 4K transfer. And another thing, and I'm sure everybody out there is hoping as well, fingers crossed that maybe that Second Sight can get their hands on this. How great would it be if they actually done the exact same kind of box set that we got on that Dawn of the Dead? Wouldn't it be amazing to be able to slot your Day of the Dead edition right beside that Dawn of the Dead one? That would be heaven. So fingers crossed that does happen. So yeah, Day of the Dead, I'm hoping that will. Actually, I know it's going to happen. It's just a question of when. Right, so up next is, I'm going to introduce this probably to the worst looking Blu-ray in the history of that format, and it is Footloose. I am such a fan of this movie, and when I knocked this on, I couldn't believe what I was watching. It is just riddled in DNR. You won't believe how bad it actually is. Every single frame of detail has been just scrubbed away. You won't find one fine bit of detail through this entire movie. It looks horrible. The colours are all murky looking. It's just like it's like watching a bloody oil painting at times. It is horrible. And the weird thing as well is this. It actually got a 6.1 DTS audio on this as well, and it just lacks any kind of life, any energy. And it's a shocking thing when that happens, particularly a movie like Footloose that is music driven. Yeah, you want your audio to be somewhat decent, but unfortunately, the audio is almost as bad as the actual picture quality. But if you have not seen this movie yet on Blu-ray, do not waste your time with it. I'm not kidding you, folks. It is one of the most horrible looking Blu-ray transfers you will ever see. And this movie needs a serious amount of work. Now, the only thing that worries me with this movie is this is Paramount that done this release. And I remember there was another transfer, not as near as bad as this one, but it was Planes, Trains and Automobiles. It looked terrible on Blu-ray, and then when it got announced on 4K, everyone was very excited about it. And then all of a sudden the 4K came out and it was the exact same again. It was just scrubbed away with DNR. If Paramount do it again with this movie, I think it would be criminal. It really, really would. So yeah, hopefully someday that movie, it deserves so much better than what we get here, and I'm hoping someday it will happen. Right, so up next is another one of these movies that I'm sure everybody wants to see on 4K, and it is Aliens. Now, Aliens is not the prettiest looking movie, but neither was Alien, and look how that 4K transfer turned out. It would probably be in my top 5 greatest 4K transfers. So that's all I want to see when it comes to Aliens. Give me something very similar to what they've done with Alien. You know, give us them Dolby Vision colours, tighten up them blacks, give them nice inky looking blacks that this movie desperately needs. And I would be so satisfied with that. Now, another thing that I would like to see that is different to Alien, I would love to see a Dolby Atmos soundtrack on this movie. I felt Alien was a missed opportunity. This movie lends incredibly well to Atmos, and it's so atmospheric, and you need a Dolby Atmos soundtrack for this movie. And fingers crossed, whenever it does get a 4K transfer, and I'm sure it will, the Dolby Atmos will be part of it. Now, I have 2 concerns with this movie in terms of 4K transfers. One, I don't know if I want James Cameron to oversee the restoration of this movie, because we all seen Terminator 2. We know how bad it is. And maybe the reason why that movie looks so bad, I'm sure the 3D version of it had something to do with it. So maybe that won't be an issue. But another problem I have as well, this movie is now owned by Disney. And Disney's track record on 4K is not great, and especially with their Dolby Atmos as well, they just don't give a shit when it comes to Dolby Atmos. They just throw out anything. You're always pumping up your volume for some strange reason with every movie that they bring out that has a Dolby Atmos soundtrack. But look, all we can do is hope, fingers crossed, that whenever it does get a 4K release, they do a stellar job in it. So yeah, that is Aliens, and probably one of my favourite movies of all time. Unbelievable. Right, so up next, surprise that I was going to put this in the video, we've got Assault on Precinct 13. And as you can see, this release is actually one of Second Sight's first limited editions they ever brought out. And now, I'm not quite sure if they actually oversaw the restoration of this movie. I honestly don't know, I didn't check it up. Now, the movie looks good, but there is serious issue with crushed blacks in this. A lot of scenes that can be seen on it. And it can be very, very distracting at times. And this is, again, an issue that I would love to see getting addressed on 4K. Now, there's another thing as well with this movie, and I don't know what it is. Maybe the original negative of this movie is in poor shape. But there is one scene in this movie. It's when the secretary is trying to release Napoleon Wilson from his cell. I think it's the first initial attack on the precinct. There's around a minute and a half scene where the picture quality almost looks like VHS. And I'm not over exaggerating that, folks. It goes really, really bad. Now, I'm presuming this is all to do with source material. I honestly don't know. But I'm hoping they can do something a bit better than what we've seen on this. It is horribly distracting when it does happen. And yeah, I would love to see them just address that and clean it up. And other than that, the movie is in great shape. I know it's one of them movies that doesn't necessarily lend well to 4K. It's incredibly dark. But look, the heart wants what the heart wants. It's one of my favourite John Carpenter movies. And yeah, maybe give us a new soundtrack as well. That would be fantastic. How great would it be to hear that new Assault on Precinct 13 theme with Dolby Atmos behind it. Whew, that would be amazing. So yeah, that is Assault on Precinct 13. Right, so up next, and I know I'm clutching at straws with this movie, we have got Rob Reiner's The Sure Thing. Now, this is one of my favourite 80s movies. I am a big fan of 80s road movies. You just don't see these movies anymore, unfortunately. This one kind of has more of a romantic twist to it. It stars John Cusack and Daphne Zuniga. I think that's her name. And the chemistry between the two of them is absolutely phenomenal in this movie, and it's for that alone it's worth checking out. Now, I don't know who done this Blu-ray. I don't know what company it is. Now, it says Studio Canal down the bottom of it, but there's no way Studio Canal done it. I've never seen. It's a very strange. It's a very strange looking Blu-ray. Even at the back of it, there's just all different languages. I think there's Sweden there, Norwegian, there's Denmark, there's so many different languages in the back. So yeah, the Blu-ray in this one, it just doesn't look great. It's actually 1080i, it's not even 1080p, it's not a proper Blu-ray, and I'm not quite sure why they've done that. Now, it's not the worst looking Blu-ray you will ever see, but my god, there is so much room for improvement. But the audio in particular is quite bad. And I would love to see it getting a new master just for the audio alone. And another thing as well is I have this movie on Blu-ray now. I have it on DVD. I don't have a single feature for this movie. And I would just love to see, you know, just even a handful of special features if they ever did bring out a 4K release of it. But like I said, I'm probably clutching at straws with this one. But you know what? You never know. Stranger things have happened. So yeah, the sure thing, we'll have to wait and see. Right, so up next, this is just a movie that I just want to see on 4K. We have got John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China. I only just watched this very, very recently. There's not a thing really wrong with the Blu-ray. It looks great. The audio actually does sound fine as well. And all I just want to see is a refinement of this movie's picture and audio. Now, I know I can't never see this movie getting a Dolby Atmos soundtrack, which is a bit of a shame because, again, it is one of them movies that would lend well to it. But I would love to see this movie. I'd love to see HDR Dolby Vision on this movie just to see what it would do to it. And I'm sure there is room for improvement. Well, I know there is room for improvement there. If you have seen any of John Carpenter's movies on 4K, I think every single one of them looks spectacular. And I'm hoping someday Big Trouble will get one as well. So fingers crossed in that. So yeah, that's Big Trouble in Little China. Right, so another movie that I watched the other night, something a bit different as well. You know, it doesn't always have to be horror and action and, you know, big box office movies. You know, we've got The Wedding Singer. Probably one of my favourite rom-coms of all time. Again, going talking about chemistry, just like I did with The Shore Thing. Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler in this movie, they're an absolute revelation. And if your heart doesn't melt at the end of this movie, I think you might be dead inside. It is such a wonderful movie, and they really capture the tone of the 80s so well. I think it's the biggest testament that I could say to this movie is when I'm watching it, it actually feels like I'm watching an 80s movie and not a 96 it came out in. So yes, this movie is in serious trouble in terms of its Blu-ray. Again, riddled in DNR. It just has this real over-processed look to it, and it is absolutely horrible. It's a shame. It's an absolute shame. And not only that, but the movie it's incredibly colourful. One of the most colourful movies you will ever see on the Blu-ray format. And I'm always sitting there wondering to myself, my God, if you just slapped HDR or Dolby Vision onto that, how great would them colours actually look? So I'm hoping that this movie might get revisited on 4K and give us the transfer that the movie absolutely deserves. The audio on this actually does sound quite good. It's a true Dolby 5.1, and I have actually no issues with the audio. Atmos would be great. You know, again, it's one of them movies that's it's heavily influenced by music. So it would be nice to hear Dolby Atmos, but I can't see it happening if I'm completely honest. But yeah, Wedding Singer, it's such a wonderful movie, and unfortunately, the Blu-ray is quite poor on it. Right, so up next is probably my favourite vampire movie of all time. Actually, it is my favourite vampire movie of all time. We've got Vamp. And as you can see, this is a very old Arrow Video release. That's the problem I have with Arrow Video at the moment. I just think they're revisiting the wrong movies. They should be going back to these movies, these older editions that they brought out first. Because I'm actually looking at my collection. I have all of them, actually bar one. And I think there's around 30 of them, and I think they've only revisited 3 movies, Demons 1 and 2, and Tenebrae. So I think they should go back to these and look at some of these movies and give us the transfers that they desperately deserve. Now, this movie doesn't look that bad at all. I'm actually very happy with the Blu-ray on it. My only issue is it has a single mono soundtrack on this. Now, I know a lot of people do like that. For me personally, I would like to hear a bit more activity, particularly with this movie. It would lend very well to it. And not only that, but the colour palette of this movie is very unique. It has a very, pink look to it. It has a kind of blue look to it as well. It has a real 80s style to it. And I can only imagine what those Dolby Vision or HDR colors could actually do to this movie. So again, I might be clutching at straws with this one, but you never know. Hopefully someday Arrow Video will come back, revisit this movie, and give us the transfer that it absolutely deserves. So there we go, folks. That is Vamp, and what a movie that is. Right, so this is going to be my last movie for this video, and this is the most heartbreaking one. Because it's one of my favourite movies of all time, and I hated how the picture looked in this, and it is The Burbs. Now, what scares me with this movie is this could all be down to source material, unfortunately. I think The Burbs has a history of it just being an ugly movie, and I'm not quite sure what they can possibly do when it comes to a 4K transfer. I'm hoping they can do something better than what we got here. There are so many scenes in this movie that is just borderline distracting to look at. The grain structure of this movie is horribly, horribly inconsistent. There's one scene, two scenes in particular, sorry. There's a scene where the three of them are, Tom Hanks and his neighbours are actually walking down the street. And I think it's Art, his character, is just telling a story about this fella named Skip, who murdered someone on the street. And if you actually just look at the background behind them when they're walking, the grain is so heavy and it's so noisy and it's just swimming all over the screen. It is absolutely horrible, horrible to look at. It almost looks like, you know, if you actually get your sharpness on your TV and you just pull it up to max, you know, that kind of noisy, it's more noise than anything else. That's what it kind of looks like. It is horrible. And then there's another scene where they actually go into the Klopek's house for the first time. That entire segment is just, the whole house is just riddled in this heavy grain, and it's just swarming all over the place. It just removes any kind of fine detail, and I always find that scene to be horribly distracting, which is a shame because it's one of my favourite scenes in the movie, so you can understand why I wanted them to kind of revisit this movie and see if they can actually do something with it. But again, this could be all down to source material, unfortunately. But another thing I would like to see revisited this is the audio. You only get a 2 PCM channel on this one, and I would love to see them just come back, give us maybe a DTS 5.1, just add a bit more activity, a bit more atmosphere to that sound. And even if they can't get the picture looking the best it can, at least I would have the audio, and that would be something. Right, folks, so there we go. That is The Burbs, and yeah, hopefully someday we will get a 4K transfer on that one. So that is it, folks. That is it. So as per usual, if you did like what you see here, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you could do, leave a comment down below, and please do share your thoughts on some of the movies that I've been talking about here, and what would you like to see get in a 4K release. I would actually love to hear your thoughts out there. And yes, I hope to see you all again real soon with my next video. Until then, I'll see you soon. Bye bye.